Revolutionary talk for revolutionary times. Promoting peace, liberty, and prosperity around the clock. LibertyTalk.fm.
Welcome to Liberty with Love. I am your host, Robin Koerner. It is fun for me to have you with me. It is an honor that you would take out, about an hour of your day, of your week, to hear what I have to say about things that I care about. So thank you very much for that. I was actually not expecting to be doing the show I'm about to do because I had a great interview set up. Not only set up, but I had actually begun to conduct it just about an hour ago with someone who you probably have heard of, Cynthia McKinney, 6-time Democratic U.S. Congresswoman, so a member of the House of Representatives. But the internet connection was not up to the job. And the reason is that I was actually trying to conduct the interview with me at my home in Seattle and her in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Well, Bangladesh isn't known for its super fast internet. And whereas it was 9 p.m. here, it was 11 a.m. there on a Friday. And of course, there's a lot of people using the internet at 11 a.m. on Friday. Just couldn't make it happen. So, I'm delighted to say that she very kindly agreed to wake up at 6:30 in the morning on Sunday this weekend to give us another shot of recording that interview. So hopefully next week, or maybe next week but probably next week, the show will be a fantastic interview with Cynthia McKinney, former U.S. Congresswoman and even now current political activist on a global scale. I think that's fair to say. And what I want to talk to her about, so do tune in if this interests you, and if you're listening to this show, it probably will. I want to talk to her about the nature of power, and specifically how power is wielded in the United States at the level of the federal government. And a way into that is, I'm going to ask her, how corrupt is federal power, and how corrupting is federal power? Now, obviously, Cynthia and I will probably disagree on a lot of politics, a lot of specific political positions. She is certainly a left-winger. She actually ran as a Green Party presidential candidate less than a decade ago. So, but as you know, I am not about just talking to people I agree with. I am about talking to people who I think have some experience that allows them to teach me something. And I hope, since you're listening to my show, for which, again, thanks, people who can teach you all something through this show. So check in at libertytalk.fm next weekend for that interview. And, it will happen unless the Bangladeshi internet gets the better of us again. But that's something I'm looking forward to. So that means I have to record a show in time to upload it so that you all get to hear it streaming on Saturday and Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. So I have to come up with something kind of off the top of my head. But, politics in the US is just getting crazier and crazier. So there's so many things to think about. Actually, there's so many things that I've been kind of forming thoughts about that my second book, I think in an amorphous way, is kind of in my head. I have said to folks who've asked me if I'm going to write another book, I won't write it until I've sold 2,000 of my first one. So if you want to actually read my second one, and you haven't bought my first one, you can help this little process along by going to ifyoucankeepit.us and picking up a copy of my book, If You Can Keep It, Why We Nearly Lost It and How We Get It Back. At that website, ifyoucankeepit.us, and you can read the foreword there by Jeffrey Tucker, and you can also, stick it in Amazon and read the reviews on Amazon too, if you're interested. But so some of these amorphous things kicking around my head. Well, some are more amorphous and some are less so. And I don't know. We'll see. I'll get to some of them. As this show goes on. But I want to start by just talking about the latest WikiLeaks revelation. What is it? I think it's called Vault 7. Oh, God. I mean, nothing is shocking anymore. And I would even like to say, it's surprising but not shocking. But of course, it's not even surprising anymore that we are being massively abused. Americans are being massively abused. And, we can have any arguments we want to have about surveillance, the importance of it, and how it should and shouldn't be done. But let's just stand back. Let's stand back a few yards from this and take a long, hard look at what we're really looking at. You can't do this to a people. You cannot systematically, continuously, utterly pervasively ignore, destroy a fundamental human right. A fundamental human right to be private in our homes and in our effects. The Fourth Amendment. It's there for a reason. And actually, whilst we're at it, the First Amendment is there for a reason, and it's the first one for a reason. And when every communication pretty much that you have is being surveilled, and it is, you don't have freedom of speech. You don't have it. Your speech is, one might say, it has cold water thrown on it. Because if I know anything that I say is going to be recorded and potentially used against me by those with nefarious intent, and if that includes things I say in private to people that I have private relationships with, then we're in big, big trouble, folks. And the WikiLeaks revelations have told us that is exactly what is going on. The CIA has worked hard to be able to listen to us through our electronic devices, whether they be mobile like our iPhones and Androids, or whether they be in place in our homes like our TVs. Yes, our TVs. It's Big Brother. It is Big Brother. It's not like Big Brother. That is Big Brother. Right? Scary stuff. You can't, these people, and it has to be stated this clearly, these people who are perpetrating this crime, and it is a crime, it is actually a crime, and I'm not just using that, to say it's kind of a moral outrage. It is a moral outrage, but it's also a crime. These people perpetrating this against the rest of us are putting the rest of us in a position where we have nowhere left to turn except violence. I do not advocate violence. But when you give a people no other choice, no legitimate means to assert, enforce, protect their right, when they lose all reasonable expectation that the normal means, the public means, the heretofore legitimate means of defending their basic individual rights, when all expectation is lost that those means are any use whatsoever, right? When all expectation is lost that they are non-corrupt and we believe them to be corrupted, once we're there, we have nowhere else to go, do we? If when we tell them, please stop doing this to us, they keep ignoring us and keep ignoring us, in the end of the day, what is there except, to converge on Langley and dynamite the door? I'm not advocating that, but that's what happens when you have nothing else to do and nothing pretty much to lose. And if I can't conduct a normal private life and share my authentic thoughts with people I choose to share them with, and to withhold them from people who could do me harm, right? Like a government which has monopolized power in a way that nobody even imagined when they called government the monopoly of power, then, all bets are off. And I'm starting to get scared. starting to get scared for our society. America, land of the free. So now the question is, are we the home of the brave? Are we brave enough to do anything about it? Are we smart enough to work out what the hell we can do about it? I mean, it's, I don't know. But it's scary times. I hope I won't be called to have to lay my life on the line because all there is left to do is protest against a line of riot, of police in riot gear and dodge the bullets. I hope that doesn't happen. I don't know how courageous I am. I've never had to do that. But I'm worried that we're not going to have anything left to do or anywhere left to go. I'm getting a little scared for our country. This is Liberty with Love. I wish we had more liberty. I wish we had more love. And by the way, because things are as bad as they are, this, of course, is precisely why I dedicated my book to Edward Snowden, who has been trying to warn us for a long time. And now Wikileaks is claiming that what they're putting out is, going to make the Snowden revelations look small. I mean, that's just a terrifying thought. But I've read the document, the first that first page press release, if you like, they put out. It's links to so many documents there, and of course, I haven't had time to go through them. I probably wouldn't understand a lot of them, even if I did. But here we are. I just gotta wonder. I interviewed William Binney. Now is the time to check out that interview I did with William Binney. Go to libertytalk.fm, do a search on Robin Koerner, William Binney, or just Google Robin Koerner, William Binney, and find that interview. It was fascinating because we got into not only what the NSA and these kind of agencies are doing, but why they're doing it. What is it about the people who are perpetrating these crimes against us that is making them do it, making them want to continue doing it? You could almost say that William Binney did a little bit of psychoanalysis there. And, William Binney has been, in the light of these revelations from WikiLeaks and in the light of Trump's claim that Trump Tower was bugged, and he's blaming Obama for that, right? William Binney has been doing the rounds on the media saying Trump is absolutely right. And the way Binney knows that Trump is right is that we're all bugged. So if we're all bugged, Trump was bugged too. Now, whether it makes sense for Trump to kind of say that Obama ordered it, well, it makes sense in one way, it doesn't in another, right? We have no reason to believe, I don't yet have any reason to believe, that Obama said, we're going, go bug that Mr. Trump. But under the appropriate executive order, I want to say, I think it's 11333, something like that. Under the appropriate executive order, this is being done to all of us all the time. So, and I believe that just before he was outgoing as a president, Obama extended by executive order, maybe we should say by executive fiat, the ability, I don't even want to say ability, I don't want to even say permission because the permission isn't legitimate, but he kind of ordered more agencies to use these warrantless privacy busting techniques to collect information about innocent American citizens. So, beforehand, I think it was only the NSA doing it, and now we can see what the CIA is doing, and now, the whole thing's thrown open. And we have these secret courts that William Binney says, aren't worth squit. So we live in dangerous, terrifying times. Because either way, it doesn't look good, right? Either we as a people just bend over backwards and let it carry on, and we decline more into, the Stasi, right? It's the Stasi state. It was the East Germans' secret police. It was, the KGB. What we've done is we're doing exactly what they did. We're just doing it so much better, right? We've just got technology that those Eastern Bloc nations never dreamed of and would have given a lot to have, I'm sure, in surveilling their population. I mean, it's not okay. We have normalized in this country. They're taping over cameras and microphones on laptops. When I go around doing my stuff, it's not like I'm dealing I'm not in the intelligence community. I'm not dealing with people that do a lot of work about, in that side of politics. But I'm often with people who have some tape over their laptop because we're being surveilled by our government. How did that become normal? Like, how is it that we put the tape on our laptop and didn't start marching in the street? How is that? We're American? Please. I mean, it's just astonishing to me. I mean, I'm Generation X. I'm not millennial. I'm Generation X. I was brought up at the end of the Cold War. I remember the Christmas when we had the TV on in the dining room and I was watching the fall of Ceausescu and I had never seen anything like it. And why did he fall? Well, the people were sick of the intrusion in their lives by that regime. Now, fortunately, we, in the Anglo tradition, don't have a murderous dictator and concentration camps. Well, if we do, we don't have many. So we're not in the same place. I'm not saying we are. But with respect to what the government believes about its ability, or rather its moral permission to intrude, that's the same. There's no difference. And indeed, what our government believes about the rule of law, I think it's pretty much the same as these old these old Eastern Bloc regimes. I know what the law is on this because I'm staring at it. I've got the Bill of Rights on my wall. The Fourth Amendment is pretty damn clear. The government ignores it. The government ignores the rules. And it's not just the rule of men in as much as the laws aren't being followed. It is actually very literally the rule of men. Men behind desks in secret buildings doing secret things to invade your privacy. Every day deciding whose privacy they're going to invade and how. Unrestrained by any moral code, unrestrained by any legal code. And the things they can find out, the things they do find out, and what they do with them, it's completely up to them. Because who's going to stop them? What's constraining them? It may be, if these leaks are anything to go by, that even the president doesn't get to constrain this little subset of government agents who decide that they're the ones that get to choose how to abuse the people and what damage to do to them and their basic human rights. So there we are. It's pretty damn sad. Oh God, I can't believe it. I'm just looking at my software here and I see I've got a minute and a half in the second segment and all I've done is complain. But that's kind of where we've got. What an awful week. What an awful week. It's just getting worse and worse. We've got to speak up. We've got to speak up. Yeah. A lot of the work that I do in politics is about communicating things carefully in ways that are chosen so as to ensure that opponents will listen and that maybe you can find common ground. But, maybe some things don't give us the luxury of that, right? I mean, maybe there is no common ground to be found with someone who says it's okay to use these overwhelming resources, this overwhelming force, to completely and utterly ignore your basic human right to privacy, to a private life, to being able to use your property to do the things, if nowhere else in the world, inside your property, you get to do and say things without having to worry that anybody else is listening, is going to take that information and hurt you with it later. My God, the founders must be absolutely turning in their graves. Shame on all of those workers at the CIA and the NSA who are contributing to this, and the violence that they are almost making certain will happen unless they stop. Stairway Press is pleased to announce the publication of Robin Koerner's first book, If You Can Keep It, Why We Nearly Lost It and How We Get It Back. Jeffrey Tucker in the book's foreword wrote, "We seek to end government as we know it, but that is not the whole of what we seek. We also favour something beautiful. Explaining what this looks like and the rhetorical apparatus that necessarily accompanies this is the greatest value of Koerner's book." Barry Farber, award-winning talk show host, wrote, "Robin Koerner's political, psychological and philosophical rampage through today's America, turning on lights we didn't even know were off, takes more and more of your intellectual breath away according to how high you rated intellectually in the first place." Chris Ann Hall, constitutional attorney and educator, says, "Robin Koerner is a defender of liberty and a true lover of America's constitutional republic. The knowledge that Robin brings to his readers is sure to be instrumental in the restoration of our American foundational principles." If You Can Keep It by Robin Koerner, published by Stairway Press. Go to ifyoucankeepit.us for your pre-ordered, personally signed copy. Okay, so that's enough of that. I don't want to depress you anymore, but we do need to be talking about it. We do need to start saying just how bad this is. This isn't now a technical discussion, right, about how we surveil and how much. We've gone well past the line. There is no privacy now whatsoever. That's it. Game over. Done. We're at the point of, they're asking for revolution, and we need to call it, because I don't want that. I don't think anybody wants that. Certainly the kind of revolution that is violent, right? But, everything now that these agencies are doing seems to be pushing us in that direction. So we need to call it, and we need to say it's not even a bit acceptable. That's how I feel. But enough of that. I want to talk about something completely different. Let's change the flavor of this show. There's something that's been on my mind a bit. You may remember that I wrote an article not long ago that was inspired by Trump's inauguration speech, and specifically one line in it, something along the lines of, "If you let patriotism into your heart, there's no room for prejudice." Now, you may disagree with that, I guess. You may certainly think that Trump wasn't being sincere. I'm not going to judge that. But it was a line that struck me enough that I went off and wrote this article about it. And recently, I had another aha moment that provided me a piece of information about patriotism that I hadn't kind of realized. It was kind of, you might say, a piece of internal evidence that bears on the question, internal meaning internal to my being, right? Internal to, like, subjective. But the bears on the question, what is patriotism? And is it a positive force or a negative one? And I also, on a recent show, discussed George Orwell's talking about patriotism. George Orwell, the socialist, right? George Orwell, who didn't believe in anything that his Tory government believed in 1940 when he wrote the essay that I discussed on that recent show. And he said that he was a patriot. And as an international socialist, he realized how unacceptable that would be to many of his socialist friends. I remember writing back in 1940, Second World War. How could he justify being a patriot, in other words, being loyal to a country that clearly was not socialist? So this was, in the war, a Tory Churchill, an imperialist Churchill was in government. And there was Orwell claiming his patriotism to England. And writing this amazing essay where he said that only these people, he was actually talking about his friends on the left, who were so enlightened, could be enlightened enough to not understand the good sentiments, including the patriotism of good, honest folk, and to deride them for those sentiments, and to formulate policy and to prescribe the way of things without taking into account their sentiments. And so what do I mean by sentiments? I guess I mean, I guess I'm talking about sentimentalism, right? Different people are sentimental about different things. I have a friend who can listen to a Mahler symphony and cry. It just touches him so deeply. It does something to him. It takes him somewhere. And he bursts into tears very quickly listening to Mahler's Fifth. I have another good friend. Opera does the same thing for him. Now, I'm not moved by Mahler. Not like that. I can't get into opera. Not like that. Poetry can sometimes do that for me. But something that really does that for me now, and it hasn't always been the case, is history and place. Those two things together. Or maybe it's three things. Maybe it's history, place, and beauty. When I am feeling all of those things, I get moved. It's like a kind of, dare I say, ecstasy? And I don't mean the drug, right? Literally, not Biggie. I get glad to be alive. And the aha moment I had recently, that's very abstract, so I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean. The aha moment I had recently was that when I'm in England on a beautiful summer's evening, right, maybe driving through the West Country, the rolling hills with the thatched cottages, you know, the beautiful stone buildings, the churches that were built in the 16th century, and you drive through and you have a wonderful view out to the coast, maybe the Jurassic coast. And it's all just picture postcard perfect. And I feel the Englishness of it. I imagine that hundreds of years ago, not only did other Englishmen walk those hills, walk along those paths, but they saw the same thing. They probably enjoyed the beauty of the scene and the scenery in just the same way. And I feel how wonderful it was, or it is, that in 1,000 years, this has been preserved and is, if you like, the ground, literally the ground, on which millions of people, some dead, some alive, have got to be free, have been able to make a living, to feed themselves, to feel happy, and to use some of their free time to go for walks and enjoy that scenery and whatever it may be. I get moved. And in my head, and I may be embarrassing myself a little bit, but in my head, I often hear the lines to the beautiful old hymn, Jerusalem, William Blake. And there's a line in there, and did those feet in ancient times walk upon England's mountains green? And it gets religious, it's a hymn. And was the Holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant pastures seen? Now, I don't sign up to, let's say, orthodox theistic religion. But I feel where that song comes from when I am walking England's mountains green and on England's pleasant pastures. And that's the song that comes to mind because that's a patriotic hymn in England. It's a hymn that many English, say as an expression of joy when they're enjoying their culture, their history, their Englishness. Another one, of course, is Land of Hope and Glory, right? If you listen to the words literally, there's certain bombast about it. You know, it's kind of a song that looks to imperialism and those values that we've left behind. But there's a beautiful celebratory quality about it. And both of these hymns are sung, or both of these songs are sung at the last night of the proms, which is a quintessentially English, patriotic, concert that happens every year in the summer, when the English basically take the piss out of themselves, right? They make fun of themselves, which is something else that's very English. So even that is kind of a statement of patriotism, right? And all of these things. So I have these feelings, right? I'm in England. I can appreciate England on its own terms. Well, of course, I'm no longer just English. I'm American now. And guess what? I'm an American patriot too. If the fact that I can feel that about England makes me an English patriot, and if the fact that I am proud for the things that England has achieved makes me an English patriot, the weird thing is, as an American immigrant, over many years, I have naturally developed, the exact same feeling for my new country. I get moved in the same way. I get moved really deeply. And when I'm in the car, not driving through the beautiful rolling hills of England, but maybe the dramatic mountains of the Cascades, which are close to where I live in the United States. When I look at American history, when I look at the document on my wall, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, I feel that same thing. And the song that comes to my mind, well, actually, the Star Spangled Banner. It's pretty damn good. Now, in my head, as a patriot, that sometimes just I just sing it to myself. I wasn't even born here, but I care that much about it. I feel as much ownership about it. And I want to celebrate it. I want to celebrate it in song. I'd celebrate it in dance if I didn't have two left feet, I guess, right? When I feel moved to. The point being, though, that I'm sentimental about history. I'm sentimental about culture. I'm sentimental about beautiful place. And I'm so blessed that I get to enjoy and to call home like these two beautiful places, England and America. And the irony is, when I look at the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and this is kind of deep, I think this is important, I get that swelling of, dare I say, pride? I didn't write it. Why should I be proud? Why should I be proud? Because I identify with tradition, and I am proud for those who went before me. And now I'm an American. I get Thomas Jefferson becomes mine. He's the one that went before me. Before I was American, he wasn't the one that went before me. But now he is. Now I identify with him in a natural way. So here's the thing. Here's what this tells me. Here's the one point I want to make. It cannot be, can it, that patriotism is exclusionary. It cannot be, can it, that because I love one country or one community, or let's make it an evolutionary comment, one tribe, that means I cannot equally respect and revere another. No. The opposite is true. Because I am someone who can appreciate the good, the specialness in one culture, in one place, in one history, because I have that in me, and because I can be glad for those around me, those in my tribe who feel those same things, and I feel fellowship with them, because I'm that person and I have that potential in one place, I'm the same person with the same potential in another. In other words, because I'm an English patriot, if that's what I am, that doesn't make me anti everything non-English. It doesn't make me put England above everywhere else. Rather, the same sentiment is what makes me feel just as passionate, just as much ownership, just as much pride in this thing that not only isn't England, was actually set up as a foil to England. It was set up as a repudiation of everything that was bad about England, right? At the time, I'm talking about, 1776 and all that. So there I am. I've got pride in England. I'm an English patriot. I've got pride in America. I'm an American patriot. And I can only have the American patriotism because the English, with whom I also identify, got defeated. Well, that tells me something about the nature of patriotism. It tells me that Daniel Hannan is right, that patriotism is what makes you care about those close to you. There's nothing wrong with, by accident of birth, perhaps, identifying certain people as being closer to you than others. Because that's just the way of the world. That is the way it is. And this is the critical thing that Orwell was writing about. He was saying that if you have some moral or political theory, some worldview that makes you reject, look down on someone, dismiss their views because they're not rational, right? They don't fit into a theory. Then what you do is you basically deny someone's humanity. And then you start to make policy that itself doesn't take into account the actual, what it means to be a human being. Now, if you make policy that doesn't take into account what it means to be a human being, or if you try to advocate for your policy without meeting people where they are as human beings in completely non-pathological ways, right? If you don't relate to these sentimental things, to the emotional aspects of human nature, to the non-rational things, if you can't touch them, then all you're left with is the force. All you're left with is to condescend, because you can't bring them on board with emotional common ground, right? And maybe they can't articulate why they disagree with you on some policy, but they're not going to move because they feel something that they feel that you're rejecting, that you're not accepting in them. So it doesn't matter how good your argument is, you ain't going to win. And it's always going to be you versus them. So what George Orwell was saying is, those who count themselves as so enlightened to have the right moral system from which they can deduce politics and the correct politics, they're the ones who are dangerous, because they look down on all of those who are moved to preserve something that's of value. And it doesn't just stop being valuable. It isn't not valuable just because their impetus to preserve it, to care about it, is emotional, is sentiment, is driven by their feeling of connection to those who, perhaps by accident of birth, they feel a connection with. A connection that plays out in the fact that different nations have different histories. Different nations have different cultures. And they're all worth celebrating. All these narratives are wonderful. And just because mine is the most wonderful to me because it's the one I'm born into doesn't mean that I have to look down on yours. In fact, it makes me better able to celebrate yours too and to love you too. You know, in the 19th and into the 20th century, after Newtonian physics had taken hold, right? Newton basically started describing all of these previously mysterious phenomena using, with laws of nature. It became common sense for many people to reject religion, to reject the mystical, and to see everything as a machine. And they thought they were being scientific. The idea that a cat was a machine was deemed to be, by people who were not the scientists, was deemed to be better science. They thought they were being more sensible than those who maybe for some religious reason thought that animals were more than machines, right? Well, because, Isaac Newton and everything is laws of nature. Well, the thing is, though, that view was never science. It was an over-extrapolation from where science was at that time. And we even have a word for it. It's not called science or a scientific mindset. It was called scientism. And it was the idea that because the best theory to date couldn't explain something, if the best theory to date couldn't explain something, then that something was just not real. Moreover, that everything had to be explained and explainable in terms of the best theory to date. I think there's a lot of folks doing that in politics today. There's a lot of folks who, because, let's say, patriotism sentiment doesn't make sense to them. They can't even allow it as legitimate. They won't even let those who want to who want to do politics on a different basis, maybe a slightly different moral basis, but maybe a different emotional basis. They can't even allow it. It's utterly condescending. It says, I'm smarter than you and you're too dumb because you're just not with the program. We might even call it a form of social scientism, right? We have the word social science. So let's coin social scientism, because I think that's a lot of what we are seeing on the left, the illiberal left, the authoritarian left, as they shut down those of us who have different reasons for wanting to preserve different aspects of our culture and who we are.
Revolutionary talk for revolutionary times. Promoting peace, liberty, and prosperity around the clock. LibertyTalk.fm.